What up, people? My name is Lewis Lee from All Lens Media and Magazine, and this is Playing in Traffic. And we'd like to thank everybody for all the support that you give us. And I would like to throw out a couple things. Playing in Traffic, our YouTube channel. We're trying to grow this channel to so we can start doing other things. You have to have so many subscribers before they let you play. So if you can tell all your friends and family to check out our YouTube channel and become a subscriber, and make sure you hit the little bell so it will show you anytime that we go live. All right, we got people jumping in the chat room. We have a special guest, Carl Anthony. I'm going to have him jump in. And my man Ray from Motormouth Radio. So as soon as they jump in, then we will.
Here he is.
Hey, Ray.
How's it going, Lewis?
Good.
Man, I'm running like to the freaking red line recently these last couple of days.
Yeah.
I just got home like about 40 minutes ago. Say hello to the wife, pet the dog, see the cat. Put some comfortable pants on. Bang, here I am.
Hey, that's how you got to do it.
I'm telling you.
Hey,
guys.
What's going on?
How are you, Lewis? Hey, Ray.
Well.
Long time no see.
Yeah, good to see you, Lewis.
Lewis
and Ray, what's it been?
You don't know how prophetic that is, Lewis. Carl was just my guest co-host on the radio show last Sunday.
Oh, was he? See, I'm out of the loop.
Yeah.
This is great. Yeah, that's great, Carl, because I know I mentioned to you in the past this format, and I do this show with Lewis, and I've been doing it 4 years now. It's my anniversary. I've been doing it 4 years, and
okay.
And now it's great that Lewis was able to put it together. It was a surprise to me, but I think it's great.
Yeah, well, Carl's been on a couple times.
Yeah, it's been a while, though.
It's been a long while. Yeah. I have a log. I could look back, but
So, Carl, tell everybody we're live on YouTube and Facebook. So
Cool.
Tell everybody, what you do, where you're from, and all the good stuff.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name's Carl Anthony. I'm the managing editor of automoblog.net. We're based in Detroit, Michigan, and Berlin, Germany. And we're an automotive news, technology, and lifestyle website. So we cover the news, we cover industry news, but we have sections on our website dedicated to vehicle ownership. So that might be buying a vehicle, that might be maintaining a vehicle. We have a series called Book Garage where we feature a lot of the top automotive books on the market today. So some of these are guides on how to buy a Porsche, for example. Others are complete histories and outlining the muscle car era. So some of the books get really are books by Marty Shore, who, Ray, I know you're friends with.
Yeah.
So we kind of have a comprehensive site there. Thanks for bringing that up, Lewis. But that test drives tab up there, we have a thorough we have a thorough reviews process that we put all of our vehicles through. Dennis Farrell, who does all of our test drives, actually lives in Denver. So every vehicle that we drive, he takes up into the mountains. So it's a good proving ground, a good testing ground. And then really at the end of the day, we're just here to help. We're not trying to show off. We're not trying to be flashy. We're just really trying to help consumers make the best decision possible when they're buying a vehicle or when they're shopping for a vehicle. Or for those of us who are enthusiasts, we have a lot of enthusiasts who read our site. We're just trying to give them the best information possible so that they know, everything about the engine or the suspension or the interior technology. So we try to be comprehensive, but we're definitely not trying to be flashy. We're just trying to get the information across in a way that can be understood by both enthusiasts and consumers.
Yeah, you save all that flashy stuff when you come on Motormouth Radio and play air guitar. I know.
I know. Well, right. And considering I was just on the show on Sunday, I'm a little tired, Ray.
I know.
I can't do anything wild.
Actually, one thing I want to mention under the books, you have a tab, an article, the 5 best car books.
Yes.
That's fantastic. We've been borrowing your links, putting them on our site to link back to you.
Thank you.
It's a lot of times it's easier to share an article than it is to curate it from scratch. So, and if it's good enough, like the the gift buying guide, it's like, yeah, you know what, we'll just borrow it and link back. It's why do the work twice?
Hey, we are fine with people borrowing our stuff. One of the things I've always said as an editor of our site is that we like to be part of the dialogue. We like to be part of the conversation. And however we can facilitate the conversation around automobiles, we are happy to do. I've always pictured, guys going on lunch break, right? And they're talking about cars, or, going out to dinner with your buddies from work, you know what I mean? And you're talking about cars. We want to give people the ability to have those conversations. And I don't really feel the need to be credited for that. If somebody reads something on Automoblog and they inject it into a conversation as their own thoughts or their own observations, we're fine with that. We want to give people ideas. We want to give people the information. And if they want to use it, and, it's not really a big deal to me. I mean, yes, I'd like them to say, oh, I was reading an article on Automoblog, but if they don't, that's okay too. Mm-hmm. Again, we just want to facilitate that conversation any way that we can. And again, that's what we're there for, just to have that information there. So, you're with your buddies and a conversation about a car comes up and you go, oh yeah, I just read that. So we want to insert ourselves in that dialogue, if you will. Yeah,
we kind of do the same thing. And with Playing in Traffic as well, we always felt like, hey, you know what? Any press is good press, even if it's
right.
bad.
Yeah.
So just keep talking about us.
Yeah, we talk about you all the time. I mean, because you always have good content, and you're part of the circle.
Yeah.
All right.
So what else has been going on? Have you done any traveling? Were you at SEMA?
I was not at SEMA this year. We had a contributor of ours who was out there and wrote a follow-up piece on it. SEMA, I always have schedule conflicts, so I'm just never out there. And I'd like to get out there at some point to see you and Lou in person, obviously. Not at SEMA. Planning to do North American International Auto Show, though, here in Detroit, which used to be in January, but now they've moved it to June. So this will be the first year that it will be in the summer here in Detroit. So kind of interested to see how that will play out. But it seems like I just never can get to SEMA with my schedule. But I've heard it's a cool show. I mean, and I've been to the Las Vegas Convention Center before, just never for SEMA.
You have to call off sick. That's all.
Yeah, right. I should. I should. You guys were out there, weren't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ray didn't go. He don't like us. I don't think. He never goes.
Well, it seemed like it seemed like the big trends still were trucks out there. At least that's what I had read. A lot of trucks out there.
Yeah, the C10s, and now they're going big too, man. Those full size 4-door big trucks jacked up there. There were a lot of them. Right.
You're starting to see more of that, and there was, they put the camping accessories on them now, so it's like you can go out and you can pretty much camp in the bed of your truck with all the different accessories that they have, now. But it seems like from everything I can see on the aftermarket that it will be strong for years to come. That's a growing industry. As long as there's cars and as long as there's trucks, people will want to do things to them.
Oh yeah, I got a good picture of a C10 that they made a camper out of it. I'm gonna pull it up.
Yeah.
Really nice truck.
I'm a sucker for those old Chevy trucks, and I always have been.
I was just telling a guy at the shop, we had the shop Christmas party tonight, and I was telling him, we were talking about short bed trucks and how they're getting harder to find, and they always have been kind of hard to find. But I saw it on a TV show, and I can't remember which one, where they took a long bed truck and actually sectioned the chassis and put a short bed on it. And he said, wow, it's a lot of work to go through. I said, yeah, but, if you're going to restore the damn thing from soup to nuts anyway, and you're in a shop that can do that, what the hell? Right. What's the big deal about making some slugs?
Yeah, Lou did it on the show.
He did it too. Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
you know what? I think it was video.
Ray, and I guess Lewis for you too. I mean, because I always like picking your guys' brain when I'm on the show. So, as you know, trucks are probably nowadays one of the single most expensive items you can buy brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, incredible in price. And if you go heavy duty, they're even more. You're talking 70, 80 grand easily. But 1500 series trucks, half-ton series trucks are now approaching 65 and 70 grand. So
Yeah.
you guys think it's worth it for consumers to buy brand new or with a truck? I mean, what do you guys think on that?
You know, I just had to drive home the truck that's owned by the guy who owns the shop, because he was going out to the bar with a couple of guys, and his son asked me, would you drive my dad's truck home? Because he ain't going to be able to do it. Yeah. It's a 2019 Ram Laredo, fully loaded. I've been in this truck a lot. Let me tell you something. I felt like I was driving a big car. It was so smooth. But I was very, very aware of the size and, you know, the way the mirrors stick out. And, you know, I mean, I drive a Mazda 3 every day. So now I'm driving this big Laredo. And, you know, and there was traffic. And I said, yeah, I don't think I'd want to drive it every day. Not here, not where I live, not on Long Island. And to park it and all of that, I think would be just a bit too much. So, I mean, I know people love them. I hate being behind them on the highway. You know, I do whatever I can to get around them and away from them. And people don't haul stuff in them either, you know?
Yeah, my opinion on the trucks, it's gotten outrageous where you can't even buy a stripped down truck. Like the stripped down version is power windows and air, and you know, and that's 30,000.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just, you know, I think when women started driving them, it messed us up. Now the prices are high, and you know, we can't even touch them.
Right. I remember when I was growing up, like 20,000 was kind of like the baseline. You know, 20,000 was kind of truck territory, and now 20,000 isn't even small compact sedan territory.
Right.
No.
You know, so it's I don't know, and there's combinations right now of a Ford Super Duty where you can go right to 100 grand.
Yeah.
But you are right, Ray. I mean, a few weeks back, actually about a month ago, I was given the opportunity to drive a new Ram Rebel, a 2019 Ram Rebel. I wrote a review.
That's got that adjustable suspension kit on it. Yeah.
Dude, it is so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so cool.
It is.
And actually, funny, if he's still on, Al Handy, I was thinking about him the whole time when I was driving this, because I know he has that Power Wagon.
Right.
And in that Ram Rebel, there's 4 different suspension settings, and there's the aero mode, and then there's the normal mode. So aero mode is still one step below the tallest setting. And even in aero mode, I was looking down at other trucks.
Yeah.
That wasn't even the highest setting. And then when I put it up in normal mode, I felt like I was towering over everybody. And I said to my wife, I said, this is how Al Handy must feel in that Power Wagon, just looking down on all this lesser machinery. But Ray, my experience was the same. I mean, granted, that was more an off-road oriented truck versus the one you're in, but it was like being in a luxury vehicle.
Yeah.
I mean, it was quiet. It was, you know, it had the 4-corner air suspension, so every bump that I hit, you couldn't tell. And when you go south on Detroit down 75 towards Toledo, it's a rough patch of road. They've been working on it for a couple of years, and you know, so, but you'd hardly know it. So again, trucks today, the way they used to ride, they're not like lumber wagons anymore.
No. I want to tell you too, from the service perspective, I've worked on a few trucks at the shop, like 2014s, 15s, mainly for brakes and things like that. And again, it was one of the boss's friend who has a Dodge Ram. I think it was a 2014, and I had to do brakes. Brakes were wiped out, but I tell you, other vehicles, I take a notice of the little things. These brakes must have had the minimum amount of grease on any of the slide pins and mounting points, because there was none at this point. And I'm wondering, like, are they just throwing them together that fast, or are they cutting corners to save money with other things in mind? But I wasn't impressed at that at all. I had to do a lot of work to get these brakes apart.
Yeah. There was a Ray, you know, in line with that, there was a study I saw a couple months here ago in Detroit, and I can't remember who did it off the top of my head, and I'm sure I will later. But the study essentially is that consumers see the high price of a truck, but they don't necessarily perceive the value. So, you know, they're paying crazy amounts for a new Ram or a new GM or a new Ford, they're paying $60,000, but they don't perceive that they're getting a $60,000 value. And per your point about the brakes,
Yeah. And the other thing is, I've told this to my daughter who bought an SUV, a RAV4, but was looking at other vehicles. I've told this to many people. You don't realize when you step up to these vehicles, you're essentially on a truck platform, even with SUVs. And I said, what that means is the wear components like the suspension and the brakes and the tires are all pretty much truck rated. And that's going to be a higher expense when you have to incur that. And some people go, aha, there's a moment. And others are like, I'll get rid of it before then.
Right.
Okay.
And the leasing is really big right now too. So people can afford to lease them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can show you in tomorrow's paper up here. There's a separate automotive section, and it's just pages after pages, double pages for dealership ads on leases on trucks.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
right.
It really is. Now, Carl, what, in your experience, what truck would be the best value? Have you researched any of that?
Yeah, I have, and that is that's going to be subjective at the end of the day. There's things I like, for example, about a Chevy Silverado versus the competition. Like, for example, if you buy a GM truck, the frames do not twist at all. They're an extremely rigid frame. And you can see the torsion tests that GM has done. Fords and Rams will flex more in the box. Now that's not that that's a bad thing, but GM trucks tend to, when you do like the offset test and you drive the truck on a ramp, that chassis won't twist. And so there's some theories in engineering and design that say, look, when you're driving a truck and the frame won't twist, it's more rigid. There's better dynamics when you're towing. There's better payload capacity. If you're driving on uneven surfaces, so you're talking like farmers and ranchers, right? If you're driving on uneven surfaces, the doors will open, the tailgate will open. But at the same time, the EcoBoost engines for Ford are incredibly powerful. They're just monsters, and there's just no other way to describe it. Ford really in their marketing really put the screws to everybody, frankly, when it came to towing up a hill. But then if you look at the GM trucks and you look at the Duralife brake rotors, for example, and you look at what the ferritic nitrocarbonizing on the rotors, you find that GM trucks going down a hill are much better at slowing down. So the Ford will beat you to the top of the hill pulling a trailer.
And beat you going down too.
Right. So the Silverado has, when you look at some of the design, a little bit better braking going down the hill. So it really, and then if you look at Ram and their marketing, they stay out of this completely. They don't want any part of the Ford GM battle. And I have had reps from Ram actually tell me that. And if you look at Ram, they've got some pretty good titles. They've got towing titles. They've got payload titles. One, the snowplow title, Ram trucks can actually plow more snow than anybody else in the segment. They've got some good titles, and I mean the Ram HD trucks. But Ram, they stay completely, they don't want any part of it because Ford and GM have been like this. So there's products, to answer your question in a very long-winded way, Lewis, there's strengths to both. There's things I like, but as far as what's going to be the best value and what's the best for you, I mean, at the end of the day, and again, I hate to pick on Al Handy, but I really can't see Al Handy going a Ford. I just can't see him going with a Ford. So at the end of the day, I think personal preference is going to come down to it,
Yeah. What you're going to use it for too.
Right.
And I tell you, Carl, you definitely take the title for remembering what FNC actually stands for.
Thank you.
Because I broke a story about that on the show about a year ago when I first heard of it, and it was GM. They said they were using it because when cars were sitting out on the lots, they didn't want them to come out into the dealerships with rusted brake rotors. So they came up with the FNC coating, and great idea.
Right. And it does work. I mean, I've seen metrics from GM, where they compare Ram and Ford brake rotors at about 10,000 miles or so. And there is there's less rust and corrosion on the GM rotors, and then of course they talk about heat dissipation. They can withstand heat better because in that segment, that customer is towing puts extra stress on components like the brakes. So it's like, GM, but when it comes to trucks, I mean, engineering and design and marketing, they work very well together. They're a very well-oiled machine. So it's like, hey, we have this ferritic nitrocarbonizing. Wow, that's a big technical term. What does it mean? Translation and marketing, hey, it means your brakes are better when you have a heavy load behind you. So again, I think you can look at the strengths of all of these trucks and you can transition them into some really big benefits. And at the end of the day, they all ride nice. They're all fairly fuel efficient given what they are. And they all have a boatload of power. That Ram Rebel I drove, that 5.7 Hemi was a monster. I mean, at 2,000 RPMs, it was like, watch out. I mean, that thing would just, and I was barely even on the gas. I mean, that truck would pull. When I got on Interstate 94 here in Detroit, I mean, I barely had to tap it and I was ahead of everybody. So they're all powerful in that regard.
Yeah, aren't you glad you asked that question, Lewis? That was a
I mean, hey,
you're right. There is so much. And I had another thought too. Now I forgot what it was. I'm sorry.
well, when I had my repo company, I had Dodge tow trucks and Ford tow trucks, and the difference were the Dodges, their frames held up better than the Fords.
Yeah.
For actual pulling, but the Fords were stronger pullers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it all depends on what you're working with, and so everybody has their own little
I remember
likes and dislikes.
You were talking about the GMs. What
Yeah.
we're seeing in service now with the trucks that are a little older is there rust and brake lines like crazy across the board on the GM trucks, and the Silverados especially. They're just popping real lines like candy.
Right.
And and ABS controls, they put them right under the chassis. It's kind of a weird place. You need like a hatch in the floor would be the perfect way to get at it, but there is none. So I was actually going to cut one in a guy's truck and then weld in some hinges, because to get it from under the truck, even though it's a big truck, it's a pain in the ass. It really is. So service now, you have to think down the road how we're starting to see that.
There is what is it, Ray? Have you seen it too? In GM trucks, GM SUVs too. Is it like the rusted brake lines and coolant lines and things like that?
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Oh yeah.
Like for Midwestern folks, that's a.
Okay, well, like we're northeastern, so we get we're in the Rust Belt. We get enough snow too. I mean, maybe it takes a little longer here, but it's still happening. I do a lot of brake work. A lot of brake.
Now, what do you suggest? What do you suggest to replace with?
That's a good question. There's a few options too. Yeah. GM makes the lines, like we did them on a what the hell's the name of that truck? They were available through GM, but also you could go with stainless steel brake, or you could use like the trade term is called Bendaflex. It's a Cooper nickel brake line, which is very easy to bend. You'd make that up yourself, but you could do it literally. You could bend it with a pencil. The stuff is really easy to work with.
What's the name of that?
It's Cooper and nickel, which means it's copper and nickel. It looks like it's a copper tubing, and it is, but it's got a high nickel content, and it comes in a roll, so you have to do that yourself. But the other companies, you can buy them pre-made, pre-bent. Some people like doing that better. And I guess I would tell people, if you're looking for the long run to keep that truck for a longer time, I would go with a stainless steel line, pre-bent stainless. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking just to get a good service replacement and, for a shorter term, you can go with a factory line.
Right. When I was a service advisor, the dealership that I was at, it used to be a Pontiac, Cadillac, Saturn, Hummer dealership. And of course, when those brands went away in 2009, we rebranded and we became a Cadillac, Mercedes-Benz, BMW dealership. But we still serviced all those old cars. We still serviced all those old customers. And at that time, Ray, we were starting to see a lot of those brake lines and transmission cooler lines because of the salt on the road in South Dakota. I was living in South Dakota at the time. We had to replace them all,
Yeah.
And customers were not super thrilled about that either because, the brake lines, there was a safety concern, so it was kind of like, look, you know what I mean? We should probably do this today. I mean, I know you came in for a $30 oil change and now you've got a, bigger bill. So it was not necessarily like we had to kind of do some customer service skills there a little bit to kind of get over that.
Yeah. Selling service like that is always hard. I like to, you do, and I like to show the person what I'm seeing, but then again, a lot of people shouldn't be under a car, you just, so there's that liability issue, but
right. Right.
What do you think about that, Brian? You come from the service world.
Hey, Brian. Hey, how you doing? Good seeing you guys. Man. Yeah. Bendix, you could buy that brake, that nickel or the copper line like Ray was talking about. And it's really easy. And the only problem or the only complaint that a lot of people get it actually up this way in Maryland, it turns green after a while because of we use a it's not salt, but it's I can't remember. I just had the name in my head.
Brine?
But it's a grind, yeah. And that stuff is terrible.
They're using that everywhere now. They use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but actually, I sell stuff on the tool truck. I don't think I have a bottle of it, but it deneutralizes that acid or the stuff. So, yeah, you use it. I sell it to a couple of landscape places because they use it on the on the hitches, on the plows, because it actually eats that stuff up. So what they do is they coat it down and spray it to keep it neutralized, to keep it from rusting out. Right. That was one of the funny things. I go into the county shops, and they had just bought all new equipment, and they had estimated that was my last 10 years or whatever. And here it is 5 years down the road, and we have plows with holes in it. So they were like, what happened to we were going to buy new equipment. It's supposed to last so long. And of course, the stuff they use eats it.
I don't know what it is, but I've had some younger techs. I talk about brakes a lot because I do a lot of brakes. And these guys are kind of like, they shy away from it. Like, well, I got to flare the ends, and I don't know if I want to do that. It's like, listen, you should know how to do this. It's a skill you should have in your arsenal, because let's face it, you're working on cars and trucks. But and I tell them that, the Cooper Nickel stuff is so easy. My kids could do it. It's a snap. I mean, you don't even have to be good at making a flare, and you can make a good flare, a double flare on that stuff. And then, what's that, Lois?
The reason I was asking, I would like to do something like that on my Cadillac.
Yeah.
Something, upgrade. Because everything I touch, I'm going to try to replace or upgrade.
Well, yeah, you can certainly buy a roll of that stuff cheaper than you could buy the stainless steel lines by a long stretch. But you're going to have to, run them through and, bend them, which is easy. And then, flare the ends and put the fittings on. Make sure you put the fitting on first.
Yeah, I've done that before.
But I screwed that one up, of course. But it's weird that I just find it odd that I find younger guys, and some of these guys aren't young. They're like in their 30s, or even some of these guys are like in their early 40s, and they were saying, the springs, I got a couple steps of those.
Yeah, with that the Bendix stuff, the nickel, the copper stuff. This is the only tool you need. You don't have to fight it or whatever to make the lines, and you can really almost do a complete circle. It's so simple.
So that's a tool. You slide the pipe into that?
Yeah, you would slide.
The brake line goes in that, then you can bend it.
Oh yeah.
And it keeps it from kinking on the inside radius. But when I did my Pontiac, I did the Master, and I wanted to have a 3-loop, kind of like a factory deal. And I just took a small can, and I literally just bent it around the can and then straightened the ends out, and voila.
Nice.
Well, this is a steel line, but see, you would get the size.
It's like quarter inch.
This is actually a quarter inch.
Truck brakes.
But see, you would slide that in,
Oh.
and then you would just make the shape. But this is a steel line. This takes a little bit more.
That would be tough.
Yeah.
But I don't. I have some of the other stuff. It's not as handy as probably Ray.
I could go
Ray?
get some.
Ray has some next to him somewhere.
No, I don't have any down here. I don't have any brake stuff down here, but I definitely have it out in the garage.
I got Ray. I can run Ray pretty hard. I got a pretty good selection here. So
Yeah, I know you could.
Carl, every time we'll talk about anything, and Ray will have it right there next to him.
I'll show you what I have. I have the best ratchet in the world right here. I go, hey, Matco, man, you want to get a 1/4-inch drive body with a 3/8 head? This thing is sweet.
Yeah.
I was showing it off today at the party, and the guy's like, "Where'd you get that?" I'm like, "Custom built, man.
Custom built."
I said, "I got a guy. He custom built."
Guy?
And they're like,
"Yep,
no,
it could be done."
Brian, these guys up here, you're becoming a legacy because they all know you. Like, hey, what's Matco Man Brian up to?
Yeah.
It's like because they gave me touch, and like there's this larger than life. Well, not even larger than life. It's real life legacy growing, and you come up here, man. Hey, you're gonna be like, you'll have followers.
Well, I was going to talk to you. I was going to try to come up in January. So
Cool.
once the holiday gets done and clear some calendars out, and like I said, my weekends are almost free since the girls are all grown and do their own things. No more.
Sure. I know.
It's kind of weird. Me and Mama kind of look at sometime when they all got dates and they're all out on Friday night. We kind of look at each other like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. Well, it's like, all right, go to bed.
Well, wait, we try to act like grown-ups. We're like, oh man, we're gonna go out, man. 10 o'clock, we're ready to go to bed.
Yeah, right.
I get the just bring home a pizza and that's about it. That's our excitement there. So, but that's kind of funny.
So bring it back to Carl. Carl, another thing on your site. I've been following the social media so much I don't get to see the site as much. You have a bunch of articles, and one of them, which is kind of like what we were talking about with the Hemmings deal, is did the Fast and Furious movies boost the appeal of Japanese cars?
Yeah.
And that's a great topic.
Yep. And the unequivocal answer is yes. Just as anything Steve McQueen would have done in that day, Paul Newman was known as a car guy, right? So anything those guys would have touched in that generation, it's the same for a new generation. And if you look at like the Hagerty Bull List, which Ray, we've been talking about, I want to write an article on that. And I do want to interview you for that because I want to get your thoughts on that. But it is really trending towards vehicles that a younger crowd, a millennial and a Gen Xer would go after. So if you look at Hagerty's Bull List for 2020, the cars they expect will increase in value, they call it the class of 1999, which essentially means that if you graduated in 1999 or around that time, these are the cars that you would have known. These are the cars that you would have, quote unquote, grown up with. So we have a contributor who writes for us. Richard Reyna is his name. He's a product training director for Car ID, an auto parts retailer. He follows the collector car market tremendously. He's an authority on it. And so he writes a lot of our articles about that kind of stuff. And unequivocally, he says the same thing. Yeah, the Fast and Furious has boosted the appeal of those cars tenfold. Yeah. Acuras, Hondas, you name it.
Dodge Chargers too.
Dodge Chargers too, absolutely.
You can all do wheelies.
And the new Toyota Supra now that they relaunched the namesake, and so everybody went back to that.
It's a really nice car too.
Super sweet. Yeah, I'll tell you. Just on Tuesday night, I work at I was working in an electronics class, and I was talking to some of the younger guys, and one of the guys I know had a Triumph, so we were talking to him, and the other guys kind of hang around. So I asked them, like, and I get the sense for what they're doing, and these guys are all in their early 20s, and one guy has a friend who has like a Maxima, blew the engine, and he's going to put in the engine out of a G37. I said, "Damn, how close is that to fit?" And he goes, "Oh, it's not even close at all." I'm like, "Well, what's his plan for engineering to get this in?" He goes, "Well, I think this weekend it's going to get bolted up." I'm like, "Is it going to be straight? What's he doing to ensure anything?" And these guys are just out there doing what we used to do, but just on a shoestring. They're just not even thinking about like, "Oh yeah, we'll just get it in there." Like, really? I want to see when it's done. And then he's gonna supercharge it or turbocharge it or something stupid.
Yep.
God,
They're doing a lot of LS in those cars too.
yeah.
Yep.
It's real big down south.
Yeah, all the crate engines and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So-
I mean, I guess in a way, Ray, yeah, I mean, they absolutely did, you know.
I mean, if someone asked me to do that in like even in the shop, I would have to. I mean, there would be so much engineering. I'd want to see like blueprints.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm thinking like, wow, take the whole subframe and let's just do a whole subframe swap and maybe build around that. These guys are just totally. I mean, these cars may never see the light of day. Let's face it; it may never leave the driveway.
Well, when you cut it, you got to fix it.
Right.
You will.
I've got one shop. They got one guy in there. He's got a BMW, a older 3 Series,
Sure.
and he's got a small block Ford in it.
Wow.
And it's pretty awesome when you go in there and see this thing. And it's the only reason why is that he said the LS, if you can believe it or not, he said the LS stuff is more expensive, and you can make the Ford go in.
Didn't I just see, Carl? You might know about this. The new Supra doesn't that use straight 6, like a BMW straight 6?
It
Yes,
is a BMW.
It is a BMW.
I didn't.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
It models the Z Series BMW almost to a T.
How did that marriage come about from Supra to BMW? Like,
That's
don't know the backstory.
That's an excellent question. Let me see if I can find that. Hold on. Because there's a lot of my initial guess is that there's a lot of just what they call shared platforms.
Collaborations.
You know what I mean? Just collaboration, shared platforms. One of the most famous examples I can think of would be how the current Dodge Charger and Challenger are on a Daimler platform.
Right.
It's an older platform, but it does work. You know what I mean? It works great for those cars. So I think there's a lot. I think you're seeing a lot of shared platforms, shared architectures. Kind of in other ways, it's like, well, Ray, you've got your platform and your architecture, and I've got my stuff. Maybe it's less expensive for us in product development and benchmarking if we team up together. Another good example is the current Mazda Miata and Fiat 124 Spider.
Right. Now, those are 2 cars that are interesting because they're built on the same line, but they split when the powertrains get put in.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
the Miata
Correct.
gets the Japanese and the Fiat gets the Italian.
Yep.
Otherwise, they're built on the same, on the same thing. But yeah, I just was kind of, I'm thinking like the Japanese and the BMW. I didn't know how that marriage took place. That kind of threw me because I think of BMW as being kind of exclusive like that.
Yes.
So I don't know. Maybe someone married someone else's daughter. I don't know.
I go into go on.
Yeah. No, I'm looking. I'm gonna guess that it's something like that, Ray.
I just want to see it like a kit to put a Coyote motor in Brian's Mustang. That's what I want to see.
Me too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It was funny because I go into a Toyota dealership over here, and when I walked in, they had when they get one of the new Supras in, it's all barricaded off in the corner, and they get like 2 in a month, and of course they're immediately sold. People are waiting for them.
Yeah,
and it's so funny. I was walking by one, and they were charging the battery up, and the battery's in the back, and it has. If anybody that's ever worked on German stuff, they have this battery, the size of half the car in the thing. And I walked by and I said BMW, and I was like, what the hell is a BMW battery doing in here? And the tech just rolled his eyes and said, oh, this is our newest cluster. It's a BMW. So those guys don't even want to touch them. So
I got a picture of it from SEMA, but I can't find it.
At the shop tonight, there was one of the guys was busting my chops because I've been doing a lot of, God help me, German brakes. I've been talking about the Audis and the Porsches and the Mercedes I've been doing, and there's an Audi SUV on the frame table, and he goes, "Hey Ray, look, this car's going to come over to our shop. We have the sister shop, and we're going to have to do brakes. We're going to have to bleed these brakes." Like, oh, Audi brakes. But I looked at this. I don't know what model the SUV was. There probably aren't too many. But, through the wheel, you can see the caliper. And I've railed about, I had to use my new Matco impact gun to break the caliper halves apart. That's how tight the freaking Torx bolts were. But this one, on the outside of the caliper facing the wheel was the bleeder screw, not on the inside. It was on the outside. I said, you could reach through that rim and loosen this bleeder screw. I don't know how safe that is. And then on the bottom of the caliper was a pipe that came in to feed the fluid. And again, we're thinking debris can get in there. I mean, at first look, it didn't look too great. I'm waiting to see if that's going to be a service issue. I don't know, but easy to bleed.
And and you got to look at that, Ray, and you got to wonder how in the world that would have passed any kind of quality control. You know what I mean?
Now, and like I said, I've done A6 and A8 brakes recently, and those bleeders are on the inside, like typically they would be. And this SUV had them on the outside, and I even took the cap off just to see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here, this is from an 87, 88, 944 Turbo S. Okay. And it's got one on the outside, and one on the inside.
That's exactly what it looks like, too. I didn't see the inside, but that's exactly the same place. Yeah, there's a Porsche caliper.
Yeah.
Wow.
Think they'll fit on the Caddy?
Yeah. So Brian, what's the
not with your 13s?
No. So having two bleed screws, what's the procedure?
Well, we always start from the furthest one out and work in.
And what? Now, why did they do two bleed screws?
Well, it's two different halves and two bodies.
So is the Audi. Well,
so you have two whole sides, and then you have the pipe. Here's the pipe you're talking about.
That's how the Audi was set up, right?
And like I said, so when this is mounted on the car, you're going to start from the outside in and work your way.
I'll have to remember that.
And that's the way they were done.
They
were all that way.
My database is down. Joe's my database. I would always, send him a text or something like, I need the service. And boom, I get like the old data stuff where he'd send me the, the Identifix, whatever. Like, now I can't access that. So I'm always hungry for information.
Hey, Brian, just out of curiosity, that Porsche unit you were holding, how heavy would you say that is? Just out of curiosity.
This is, I don't know,
a pound,
3 pounds.
Okay.
I mean, it's not very. I mean, it's aluminum.
Heavy, yeah.
The only reason why I ask is because I've done a lot of benchmarking work in the auto industry, never for Porsche, but and so that's always the thing they drill into your head in benchmarking is how heavy is it? Lighter. And so with Porsche obviously being one of those cars associated with performance, I would think that a component like that you're holding, they're going to want to make it as light as possible. But you said that was from 86? Yeah, right.
Around 2. And this is from about 86 also.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is 87.
87.
Yeah, 87. Yeah. And these are fronts.
Okay.
The rears are identical to this. The only difference is the puck size.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys make that mistake because they do a swap. And they'll find them and they say, oh, look how this has got to be a front.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is it has the smaller pucks and it doesn't stop right. The car, I've had to do that.
Usually the calipers are smaller in the rear too. I'm surprised they kept it the same size.
Yeah, well, with the Turbo S stuff, I mean the beefy stuff. I mean it's big stuff. But a lot of people or some guys will run. Some of the Volkswagen guys will run like maybe a rear set because how big they are compared to the Volkswagen.
Sure.
But you got to make sure you get the pucks the right size because you'll have issues.
Are those steel pucks or are they ceramic?
These are steel.
I think they went ceramic later on.
But they went ceramic later on. The last set that I rebuilt, I put in ceramics.
Right.
And you got to be. I personally like the steel ones better, or it was easier, less fear of cracking it.
Right. Look at us talking about Porsches, Lewis. We're bringing this show up to a new level, man.
We're moving on up.
I can tell you, in every new vehicle Porsche releases, they always talk up the carbon ceramic brakes now. So you will see that in every marketing thing Porsche does.
I think it was. I remember when the GT4 came out. Buddy was, and he was telling me the prices of the parts. Like, Jesus, really?
Yeah.
You'd be kidding me.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this: say you were building a old school car, and you wanted to move or incorporate those brakes. What is the difference of the aftermarket that you can buy now and like Porsche? Would it be better to buy a Porsche and swap it in, or you know what I mean?
You know, you're gonna get the wow factor when you see a Porsche caliper on a cab.
I was just gonna say that, yeah.
But they're designed for that car and that size car, and I think like a Willwood's a much better way to go. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
You know, and you gotta or any of the other major brake companies, I think is the way to go.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what you were building. Like if I ever get to my Quattro, my 87 Quattro that I have, Audi, that's what that's for.
Mm-hmm.
Those brakes are for, to put on it. You know, I was instead of putting on an aftermarket, putting on the German Porsche stuff on it is, you know, for the wow factor of it. And it could be easier just getting a brake kit already made up and do it, but I'm just going for having the old school stuff. I'm kind of stuck in that way.
But the other thing too, Brian, you got to remember is, you know, you come from a world of being a technician, and I found out how to piss off a dental surgeon because I had a tooth removed last week, and the guy just convert because you're gonna love this.
You said you find a way.
Oh, I did find a way. And you know, it took me to
Was that before or after you pulled your tooth?
Oh, it was after. Oh, right after. Yeah, like the next, I had to go back. I was Friday. I had to go back Monday for the week past Monday. So he was standing there, and this guy worked on me like 15, 20 years ago. So we have a bit of a relationship. And I complimented him. I said, "Listen," I said, "you know, I'm healing great. I can see, you know," I said, "your work is stellar." His back was turned to me at the particular moment when I was speaking to him. I was in the chair, and I said, and I have to say, you know, as a technician, it was like a high level of technical work. I forgot exactly how I worded it, but what he did is he kind of turned halfway over his shoulder and said, "I'm a doctor." Like, not a tech. And I said, "Whoa, sorry." I said, "But you got to realize where I come from, a technician is looked at as a very good,
prestigious,
good thing to say, you know." But no, there he's like, "Oh yeah, you have technicians under you. Sorry."
Right.
Which
they do actually more work.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I tell you, he took this thing out. It was a broken tooth, half a tooth anyway. And I never felt him pulling up. I just felt him I think he used an easy out or something. I really did. So anyway, there was another half of the story before I diverted. I don't know.
Well, at least it wasn't the old vice grip.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah,
at least your dentist wasn't like, "Hey, Brian just came by here. I bought some new tools from him." You know? "Hey, Ray, aren't you a car guy? I got some stuff from Matco here you're gonna love. Here, sit down in that chair."
Yeah, right.
No.
I hope you got the big dead blow hammer to put me out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Funny stuff.
Yeah.
So, wait, I'm thinking I'm complimenting the guy and I'm pissing him off. It's like,
Right.
Oh, good God.
Yeah,
Oh,
I hated I hated talking to doctors, or when I worked on the cars, because they'd say, "Well, don't you know what you're doing?" And I was like, "Look, buddy, you only had to learn two bodies that never changed. I had to learn what's new for each year."
Yeah.
And you want me to remember all that? I don't even want to hear that. So.
I know where I was going with that, Brian. What I was going to say is you coming from the world of being a technician and having, like, we all have that mentality of, you know, it's like I call it the Harley Davidson world. If it doesn't fit, you make it fit, or you file it till it does fit. You know, we'll adapt things to other things because we understand the systems. And the average guy is not going to do that. I never recommended anybody even try because, you know, they're going to be in more trouble than they were. And I've worked on guys' cars who did that. They thought they watched the TV shows and they thought they were great builders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell was this guy thinking? You know, like rip all this crap out. Let's just do it from scratch.
You know, sometimes the chop saw and those things get away from you. And you just,
Oh, I know. But I've worked on a lot of guys' stuff, and they fashioned themselves as being like they see it on TV and say, "Oh, we can just like chop anything. We could cut anything." Yeah, those guys know how to put it back together. You know, you don't.
They've been doing it for years. I mean, they've been doing it for years and years. You know,
and that's the problem with TV. It all happens so fast, and it just looks, you know, like when Lou does his TV show, he'll say, "Hey, this is a TV moment. We're going to take a commercial break and we'll be done with this, but how long it took. It wasn't 3 minutes.
Right.
Ray, when as a technician, have you ever come across a problem where, a customer comes in and they're like, I have no idea what's wrong with my vehicle. I just know something's not right. And then you as a technician, have trouble diagnosing it, and what do you do in that situation? When it's really a head scratcher.
Well, you go back to your basics, and then you go back to known pattern failures. And, the typical one is a no start. A no start on a modern car. It's like, oh, great. What could have gone wrong? Oh, well, one of about 10,000 things.
Yeah, right.
So you go to the basics. You go to, ignition, fuel, same as you always did. Ignition, fuel, compression, battery, things like that. And you just kind of work out systematically. I like to work through the systems, one by one. Everybody has their own way of doing it. Everybody has their own, pattern flow. But now you rely on what other guys have done, other technicians, like Identifix is great for that because, and even in the new scanners, I'm sure Brian DeMacco scans. I haven't worked with one, but I would imagine they have that. The technician, I forget what everybody calls it something different.
Yeah, the
fix, whatever the hell.
Most fix or a percentage of a fixing or whatever it is.
Because technicians, when they find that problem, Carl, they will report back, and that goes into a database. So now you see what they've already reported as being a failure or a fix, and that database grows, and now you can see, graphically what's most probable to be the cause.
Right.
Yeah. And that's usually the biggest problem. But like Ray said, is that you still need the basics. So just because that magical ECU or the black box that we're all scared about. And a lot of guys, that's why I tell guys when they're stumped, I say, well, we got to go back to our basics. Did you check a ground? Did you check power? Did you check, you still need the basics for that black box to work.
That's
it's just,
we've always said it on the show, and Joe and I, we're going to make T-shirts. Because he preaches it, and we all do. It's like, what part of a bad ground don't you understand? It's like people don't get it. Yeah, the thing is bolted on. There's a bolt. You know what? But there's no integrity. There's no integrity there because, and I tell people it's a smaller segment of a larger story. But I had to explain to a guy, I'd rather see a ground wire connected to a piece of metal that's rusted than one that's painted. It was like, why? But my firewall's. I said, because paint doesn't conduct electricity, but rust is iron oxide. It has a chance of, letting something get through. And then you find out like what people know and what they don't know. And now, like, Jesus, I got to give you a chemistry lesson, and electronics lesson, and a mechanical engineering lesson.
Right.
You don't have time. Like, I got to get to work.
So Ray, again, and Brian too, your guys' perspective on this. So from Automoblog's standpoint, because we're more consumer focused, because we cover more the industry, we're not in the shop like you guys, but we do hear sometimes, I took my vehicle to the dealership for a check engine light, and this is usually how the story starts. They fixed it. They did whatever they did. And then, a couple weeks later, the check engine light was back on. So I went back to the dealer, and then the dealer told me this. And then I went back, and by the time you get to the end of the story, they've had their vehicle into the dealership 3 or 4 different times. And sometimes a problem is resolved. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the dealership comes back and says, well, it didn't do it for us. I mean, just keep driving it. Let us know, or it's, hey, but it's within spec and all this. And so we get a lot of readers who just say, what do we do in that situation? And then I go back to Lou Santiago's words when I talked to him a couple of years ago, and he said that he has this theory that technicians today, younger technicians, are more parts replacers than they are actually technicians and doing the diagnosis. So the idea is just like, we mentioned, you just get them in, get them out, just get them in, get them out, because the more cars you can put through the shop, the better.
One of the biggest problems, and this has always been a problem because of the check engine light, it's only one light, but it has 27 different problems
or more. Yeah,
or more. I'm just using a vague number, but and one of the things that we've started and other scanners are starting to catch on to, but we've had it for a while now, is called a health report.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And one of the biggest things with that, and the insurance companies love this now, because the insurance companies were getting hit hard because they'd have a car go in for like a body shop and they get the car back. And of course, the customer said, well, this light wasn't on when it was hit. You have no way of knowing that unless you hooked up the scanner and read the data on it like it was prior or whatever.
That
doesn't, right. And of course, the insurance company's trying to make the customer happy, and somebody's eating it or somebody's paying for it other than the customer. So one of the big things, like with our scanner now, we sell one for basically $500, okay, that will have a health report. So when the service writer gets the car in, they can go out, hook it right to the car at the very beginning of the session, or when they see the customer, and download and email it to the customer, and it will tell why or what's forming the light on.
Sure.
So you have the whole history of it. So of course, then you fix the car, and then it can you reset it, and when the light comes back on, you have documentation that you go, well, I just had it in here for this. It could have been something else that did it.
Sure.
And that way you have that health report, and that's really going to save a lot. But a lot of people they don't understand that light is controlled by a whole bunch of things.
Right.
And that's where it needs to be straightened out. And that's why when you go with the Identifix stuff or the most common problems, that's all about speed and getting the car done. That's why they throw a part on and it may not work. That's why I say you still need to check the basics. You need to make sure you have your 5-volt reference, or you have your ground, or you're getting your single from whatever to cause that
voltage. On our website, we have a decoder for the terms we use on the show, because we found out people didn't realize the shortcut, the words we use, and some of them, a lot of them are made up, and one of them is like, I think Joe coined it, was the Sinju syndrome. Like, what's that? Well, it's like Sinju had my car in for for a brake job. My my light doesn't work.
Yes,
and we've all seen that. So, and that's the same thing Brian just said. We've actually at the shop had to use health reports to fight insurance companies and show people, no, here it is. Look at the dates. The date the car was hit. This occurred like 3 months prior.
Right.
So, and then they're like, oh, you can check that. Yeah, we can check that.
Right. That's good advice. Because I just, we don't know, you know what I mean? Because we're, we're not on the same level you guys are, but yet we get asked about it. And then Ray, I wanted to pick your brain on this, and Brian too, because we're on the subject. So, and we were talking about Porsches. It was maybe earlier this year or last year, Porsche started sending to their dealerships these augmented reality glasses. Ray, have you seen this? Brian, have you guys seen this before?
I haven't seen them. I've heard about it.
Yes. And so supposedly when you're dealing with, complex engine systems and components, that you put on these augmented reality glasses, and they do like a virtual reality projection, for lack of a better word, of the parts and the components. So you can see them in a 3D sense from your glasses. You can maneuver them. And then inside the glasses, or however they have it, there's a microphone and a direct line to tech support in Atlanta, Georgia, to their Porsche engineers where their headquarters are. So now I haven't seen an update. We had an article on it a while back, but it's my understanding that Porsche was starting to roll this out. So, Ray, Brian, would you guys use something like that in the shop? You think that's beneficial to have that ability?
Well, as coming from one that worked in a German shop, yes. It was always funny that you said that, because of course I've been away I haven't turned the wrenches on the car for 18 years. I've been selling tools for 18 years, you know. So I was getting out when that was just starting, because we had our own laptop. You figure 20 years ago, we had a laptop to plug into the car, and we had a phone line, literally a phone line that we plugged into the wall, and we talked to somebody in Reno. This is back, Atlanta hadn't been built yet. It was Reno, Nevada. And, and of course the screen would go dim, and the guy on the phone was typing away, and you're like, okay, what's going on? And 2 weeks later, a part would show up and say, put this on the car.
Sure.
Because they were so scared, even telling us, because they didn't want the information to get out.
Right.
I have a floppy disk I don't know what I want to use it on, but of that diagnostic stuff that was coming out. And the problem is that, you know, it was the PIN code. I couldn't run it on anything. I made a copy, but they were so afraid of that stuff getting out.
Yeah.
They didn't, you know, they didn't even want to share with the people that worked for them. That was all hush, you know.
I've seen those glasses. I've seen those glasses that you were talking about, Carl, on a show or something, and they were showing just that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that reminded me of something when Brian was talking to Carl. To go back to your point earlier about you know, being in the dealership or in a shop, the luxury that the dealership mechanics have is there's a parts room there, and if you can take a sensor and use it on test, and they have known good parts. And you're in an independent shop, you don't have anything. You got the stuff that's on the car, and if you order a part, you know, you're on the hook for it.
Right.
So, and you know, we also call that shooting the parts cannon at it. You know, they can just throw parts at the car and see what works. You know, in an independent shop, you got to diagnose it. You have to be able to fix it. Unless you have a good relationship with a parts.
Right. Sure. It was funny back then because when we were having no start problems, you know, from the key fob, not, you know, security ring and so forth, we learned the hard way that you could only have 3 burns. And a computer, so we would burn in a new key fob, just you know to diagnose to see what part it was, and it had gotten to the point where they were starting to eat stuff because we didn't realize it was only 3 burns. Oops! Oh my goodness! Got a little excited. Hold on, guys.
I got dizzy.
So, but then we had to. What we ended up having to do was, we had to take all those components and make a test set. So when we had a car, then we would have to switch each component instead of burning it in the computer, because if a guy ever needed to change a key or whatever, he couldn't do it. So it's kind of funny how technology, I think you can do it, and I don't think you have that problem now with the newer cars. But the older stuff is kind of barbaric when you think about it.
And you look back how that, you know, you look 20 years. That was 20 years ago.
It's not long.
It's fast. Yeah, technology has really, really changed what's going on in a car. We had a guy today. He took a car from the shop down with a lineman guy, and then at the shop they realized, oh shit, he didn't take the key fob with him. So they called him on the phone and said, "Don't shut the car off, because if you shut it off, you can't restart it." The key is back at the shop now. So that's another thing that we never really had little stupid little things you have to remember.
Yeah. Those the key fobs. People walk away, and the car will stay running. I think right now today the car will stay running, but you don't want to turn it off.
A lot of them, you get a light on the dash that says, you know, key is away from the vehicle.
Right.
You know, so like if you went to the mall and shut it off, now you're stuck. Your wife is stuck, whatever. But
sure.
Yeah.
So
my mom and dad's got a newer Honda Odyssey thing.
Yep.
And my mom said that she's come out and the car's still running.
Oh man.
I'm like,
hey, listen, my wife, one day my wife comes in the house and she goes, "I think somebody tried to steal the car. It's running." Well, she left it on all night.
Oh no.
Yeah, the car running all night.
Oh jeez.
And you don't hear them. I mean,
no,
like
they're quiet. Yeah,
they're quiet. I mean, you know.
See, that makes the case for every car should have a boiler exhaust on it. So you're in the bed and you hear like, oh damn, the Chevy's running. Check it out.
Yeah, that's funny.
So Ray, what do you think? And I got to pick your brain on this because this is good. What do you think will happen to independent shops if and when autonomous cars come? How do you think that changes the game?
You know, it's just like with hybrids. You have to learn a new language. You got to learn how to fix them. I mean, autonomous cars still are going to need to be fixed.
Sure.
You know, but it's just a matter of, you know, learning to work with them. You know, just like the hybrids. So test drives could be interesting.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, a friend of mine just bought a Tesla, and he throws a video up saying, "Look, Mom, no hands, no feet." He's rolling.
Right.
I don't know.
I know, Carl. You and I, we've been going a back and forth on this on the radio show for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
We've typically not been. I'm still not 100%. I'm not a 100% fan of them. I don't. It's just that trust factor. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we all have to get in one and get familiar with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To me, it's like a roller coaster. The reason I don't like roller coasters is because I'm not in control of it.
Right.
So to sit. I mean, it's kind of cool to be able to sit back, cross your legs, and read a paper while the car takes you to work. But there's so much that goes on in the road. On the road these days. I don't know if guys like me or us. I don't know if I don't extrapolate it to all of us, but I don't know if I'll ever get used to that. And probably, from all the years I've had without it, I don't know.
I have a body shop that has two or three of the Subaru with the enhanced stopping.
Uh-huh.
With all cracked up front ends.
Yeah.
Well, that tells the story.
Yeah.
So the biggest problem, and Chrysler right now is having a huge lawsuit. They're going after because a scan company went through the back door and got into it, like anything on 2017 and newer. And that's a problem that all scanners have. And because of that, of the calculations, and somebody bypassed a system. Long story short, the car got in a crash, and the person went to go blame Chrysler because the car didn't do what it was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. When you start getting in there, that's why a lot of my body shops are having issues, because once you change a component for the suspension or set the car up, all that stuff has to be recalibrated and recalculated. And even at the dealer, they have not problems. They don't have the space to keep that set up, because all those mirrors and all those alignment specs, what happens is the guy brings a car in, he measures it all out on the floor, sets it up, does the car, gets done, and then the next car comes in. There's nothing permanent or a straight fixture. And like I said, all you got to do is be off, and you're fighting it for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. And that stuff is so calculated now. That's going to be the biggest problem with it. And even at the Lexus dealership, they had a car that with the enhanced braking wouldn't stop, and they were trying to figure out how to test it. They want somebody to stand out there, so they piled up the trash cans, and this car's going through the trash cans. It's always fun to watch. Yeah, I see a lot of interesting things from shop to shop, but take a brand new car and watch it go through the trash cans because it doesn't stop. It just kind of makes you think twice.
Caddy now has that the retina. It'll read your retinas. So if your eyes are fixed for more than a certain amount of seconds, that car will leave the lane, get to the get off the road, slow down, stop, put the flashers on, and then activate OnStar. Right. It's like.
There are some benefits like that. I mean, if you were driving and had a medical emergency, in theory, like the car could call 911, it could pull off the road for you. I mean, there's a lot of benefits. I just think we kind of got caught up in the hype of the, and of course I'm looking back 4 or 5 years ago now. When are autonomous cars going to be here? Oh, by 2020, or then it was 2021. Now it's 2025. And now when you talk to engineers and you talk to researchers and people who are really working on this technology, they're like, oh, we have so far to go. You know what I mean? Like, we're not even close, so it's like, yes, marketing can say one thing. But, just tonight, I picked my wife up. She works downtown in Detroit, and there's the autonomous vehicles, because Ford and Argo have the partnership. So they got the autonomous vehicles. Now, this one happened to be manned. Somebody was driving it. So we're starting to see more like testing in the city. But like I said, if you talk to some of the engineers and the researchers, a lot of them go, look, this Vision 2020 stuff, Vision 2025, it's all good, but it's not realistic. And, we reported on a story. So VSI Labs out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, they do a lot of work in autonomous driving, a lot of testing, a lot of ripping vehicles apart to try to see what it takes to make them autonomous. And so they did a test with some self-driving software driving out to a conference in California over the summer, and when they were going out on the highway, they were in autonomous mode, and they went to pass a semi, and the drag from the 18-wheeler started throwing off the geolocation of the car.
Yeah.
So basically, the mapping and the geolocation, they had a pre-programmed destination, but once that autonomous car, and they had a Ford Fusion, so that was the autonomous car they were doing. So a very common vehicle that any average American would drive. It started to throw that car off. And so they had to go back home in Minneapolis and, adjust the algorithms and everything. But think about that. If we had mass produced autonomous cars, as we were kind of led to believe about 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, how often do you pass an 18-wheeler on the road?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, now you have all these autonomous cars, and suddenly every one of them is getting goofed up by passing a semi, which every human driver would be able to compensate for that. So again, at a level of product development and engineering, like I said, when you talk to the guys who are really doing this stuff, they're like, yeah, we're finding these edge cases all the time. And so it's constant adjustment. It's constant. So nobody who's really working on the technology is disillusioned. And there's so many, like when you get into the deep engineering of, okay, how does LiDAR work with radar? And a lot of the stuff's over my head. I've been fortunate enough to work with the AutoSense conference and be a host for that. They have 3 conferences a year, one in Detroit, one in Brussels, which I just got back from in September, and then another one in Hong Kong, where they bring all these engineers together from large OEMs to small startups. And it's basically, there's breakout sessions, there's panel speakers where these engineers get together and go, look, okay, what are the challenges? What are the technical challenges? What are the infrastructure challenges? And frankly, what are the legal challenges?
Yeah. Carl, one of my backgrounds is in pretty much every place I've worked was in R&D in an engineering capacity. And, we always had a saying, like when we'd be in the test lab and we'd work on something like, okay, it works here, it works great. It's like, what's going to happen when it's, outside the door in the real world? So the autonomous cars are great on a closed course and race. Well, like I'm thinking with those trucks, you could be on a bridge and get a side wind. We've had that happen to us too. Mm-hmm. And again, there's a parameter that was maybe not thought of. And the engineers are, I'm sure that they're encountering, thinking of all of that. You have to, because your product is not going to live in a bubble.
You have to think on the other side of this too. When I drove semi, I always knew when a car was coming up on the side of me, because when that car reached like my fuel tank, it would give me a little nudge.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like the air would nudge me.
Okay.
And so the engineers have to be on that side of it too, to say, okay, when this car is coming up the side of a truck, it's going to give that truck a nudge. And because they're doing it in the trucks too, where they drive themselves.
Yep. I same thing with my tool truck is the same way. It's funny, after the 18 years of driving that truck, and it's like Spidey senses, because you can tell when somebody's in your blind spot, or you can feel, or like I said, and I guess going back to like I said, with a force of wind or air, and that's why it's just like you said, the computers are fast. It's just not fast enough at that point, to compensate for that. Or
it's not taking a hit.
Right, but that's how we normally wreck a car, though, because we overcompensate it.
Sure. Yeah.
We need to turn this much, and then we end up wrecking the car.
On the other side, Brian, you can look at it like, okay, instead of the human interaction of an overcompensation, what if the computer overreacts, or there's a glitch, or now that thing is 8 or 10 or 15 years old, and now something in the circuitry goes a little awry. It's the electronic version of the human equivalent, I guess.
And Ray, as we talked about on Sunday, the importance of brakes and tires, right? Mm-hmm. So again, to take a relatively common system now, like automatic emergency braking, right? It's great. It can mitigate and prevent accidents. But if your tires are shot and your brake pads are shot, it doesn't matter how fast those sensors are, you're going to hit that car in front of you. So it's almost like even as these autonomous systems come online, and today, automatic emergency braking is very common. Even base trim level cars have it now. So maintenance is even more important. The basic maintenance, tires and brakes, is even more important for those systems to work properly. So again, the computers can be the best thing since sliced bread, but if your brake pads are, shot, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not going to make any difference at all.
I've had the conversation with my kids and with people privately and on the radio, where they say, well, I have all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive and ABS, so what kind of trouble can I get in? It's listen, you don't. And again, people are not engineers, and I explain to them kind of nice, like you don't understand from an engineering perspective. Everything has a set of parameters. There's an edge to everything. There's an end to everything, and there's a limit to what every system can do. And you can hit that perfect storm where everything is getting screwed up at once, and now you're hitting it. It's a space-time continuum thing, which I think is great. Call, by the way, you guys have an article on 5 things Star Wars can teach us about cars, which is funny.
Here's another thing too. You're dead in the water if something goes wrong with one of those cars. You know what I mean? Like you can't wimp it home. Old school cars, you could take a duct tape and shoestrings, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of these cars though do have a limp mode. The system's not going to work, and you're going to be in limp mode. Yeah, it's even funny going back 20 years ago. A guy would bring his car in, and I'd get in it and start it up and say, "Well, this thing's not running right," and they say, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, well, I didn't hear the flaps for the intakes.
Right.
Cycle. And then sure enough, it would be in a limp mode. There would be no check engine light. It would be in a limp mode because of either carbon buildup or a broken flap in the intake. But you'd fix it. And the guy was like, holy crap, what did you do to my car? So, I mean, there are some limp modes to that. And, some people will continue to drive. They'll never know that their car is actually broken until they wreck it. And then they say, well, why didn't the car stop?
I just, on a little bit of a different note, a friend just sent me an article tonight. I have to look at it. He said it'd be a great show topic about electric cars and what happens in snowstorms. Like an electric car, you could be stuck like on a major storm where you could be out on the road. Like, it's happened here where cars are out there for hours. Now that battery dies, there's no heat, there's no anything, and and it was just like a good talking point. And
that's a good thought. I never thought of that.
When that thing dies, you're dead in the water, and take the gas car with it.
Another perspective here on this, autonomous driving and safety features and stuff. So, little bit of a backstory, but follow me here because I promise this is going to have a point. But in the 1970s, there was an economist named Sam Peltzman, and Peltzman did research on seatbelt laws. And so what Peltzman basically said was, look, there is no dispute. Seatbelts do save lives, but do they reduce the number of accidents? And Peltzman's work in the 1970s and the data that he found as an economist actually said that when people put a seatbelt on at the time, there was a false sense of security, right?
Yeah.
And so that even though they would save a life, they didn't necessarily decrease the number of accidents. Now, fast forward to today. On average, since 2007, the National Safety Council has found that there are 40,000 deaths on U.S. roadways each year, right? And that number has stayed steady. It's tapered off a little bit in the last couple of years, but really 40,000 is kind of the benchmark. And in the words of the National Safety Council, it's not improving. It's really more like treading water. But if you look since 2007 until now, so the last 10, 12 years, the safety systems that we're talking about, particularly not the passive ones, but the active safety systems. So the automatic emergency braking, the radar cruise control, the lane departure warning. These are becoming, they're becoming more commonplace on cars, but yet the number of fatal accidents isn't actually decreasing. It's either increasing or it's just staying the same. So in some ways, if you look at Sam Peltzman's research, we've actually kind of come full circle. And AAA just put out a study that people who have cars with active safety systems in them are more likely to be in an accident anyway because it's a false sense of security. We've written articles about this. We work a lot with the Michigan State Police. And if you look at some of the data from the Michigan State Police, there's a lot of fatal accidents in the state of Michigan that take place on clear days where you can see the road, because it gives a false sense of security. So sometimes I think, Ray, it's just like you said, it's like, hey, I've got all-wheel drive, I'm fine. No, you're not. Like you can't drive that fast in a snowstorm. You're going to go off the road. It doesn't matter that you're in an SUV. It doesn't matter, that you're in a large vehicle. If anything, you're just heavier and you're going to slide farther. You know what I mean? So sometimes I look at it all, guys, and I'm like, yeah, all these active safety features are great, but at the same time, they haven't done anything, not by the data. And I hate to be cynical, but if you look at the data, you really have to have a big question mark about it.
I have to say, to go way back to the original statement of what Peltzman said, and I don't, to compare seatbelt usage to lesser accidents, you're comparing apples to orange, because seatbelts it's a personal safety device. It really has nothing to do at the onset with accidents. I mean, accidents are caused for a lot of reasons, and the seatbelt is kind of like an after effect, So he kind of melded, in my analytical mind, he's melding two things to make. I mean, I get the point, and at the end of the day, I think the point is well taken about the false security. I just don't like the way he originally compared the two things. But
if you think about it, when you put your seatbelt on, you put your seatbelt on and you're going around a bend, you're doing 50. The seatbelt's holding you tight, so now you're like, oh, I can go 60. You know what I mean?
Then again,
a little more safe, right?
In the 70s, when that article was written, we all wore lap belts until the mid and later part of the 70s, when we had, shoulder harness, 3-point restraints. And many states didn't require it. Ours didn't require it. You didn't have to wear it. I wore it. Ever since I took driver ed, I wore a seatbelt. But I never really thought that it was going to reduce my chance of an accident, because again, that's a whole other thing. That's my perception, my driving ability, and the variable is what other people are doing on the road. The seatbelt is only there after the accident to keep you. I mean, if you don't have an accident, you didn't need the seatbelt, right?
Yeah,
so
passive safety.
Yeah,
Carl, I got a question for you. You might know.
Yeah.
What is the statistics on people with seatbelts on and they're not working, or they didn't work? Because I had a buddy that had his seatbelt on. He got in an accident, the car flipped, and the seatbelt broke, and it threw him out.
Wow, broke.
Yeah. So what's the statistics on that? Do you know?
That's a lawsuit.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. In a similar way, though, so a couple months ago, we published an article, study Volvo did, about what parents are most concerned about. Child safety is, no surprise, is the top one. But in that survey that Volvo did, a lot of parents did not realize that child safety seats actually have an expiration date on them, just like milk or yogurt or eggs. And so maybe there is something. I would have to look. I'd have to
10 years.
But as far as like, if you have a trusted mechanic, a guy like Ray, when you pull your car in to say, hey, Ray, can you check out my restraint systems? Can you check out my seatbelts? I don't know what I'm looking for. I mean, I'm not sure, Lewis, but that's a good point.
There's most seatbelts are 10 years.
Okay.
And you don't have to really argue the point, but if you have an older car and you come in and say, if the fabric is stretched or worn,
sure.
I just put them away. I have a set of seatbelts, but if you look at a seatbelt, it's doubled loop and doubled stitch.
Okay.
And when you're under an impact or a crash, it doesn't have to be a big one, but the seatbelt stretches a little bit. It will tear the first lining of stitches out. So that seatbelt technically needs to be replaced because it's supposed to have 2 stitches in it.
I know they change a lot at the body shop. There's a lot of them that are done after collisions.
And to make a really long story short, in the early 90s, or when airbags first started coming out on the cars, we had an in-house recall or in-house service action because they didn't have enough parts. We had airbag lights on, and they found it was a faulty ground. And this was back when the faulty ground, yeah.
There you go.
But the airbag harness was one complete. There was no wire connections because it was just a continuous, like a Christmas tree light. It was just a whole harness, and it was separate from the car. And there was no interchangeable parts or connections. So it was a seatbelt warning light that was causing the airbag light to come on. It was a bad ground. So we had to re-clean and do the ground. Well, we didn't have enough kits yet, or they were bringing out the kits to do new seatbelts. That's why I have some here. But the seatbelts, but they were only doing the one that was faulty, but we were supposed to repair them, change them in pairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a car. I said, hey, it's got a seatbelt light on. Go ahead, do the one side. We'll get the guy back in, and we'll do the whole kit when we have them. So thank God I replaced R&R passenger side.
Sure.
Well, the guy went out, took the car down the road. Somehow he wrecked the car, tore the B-pillar out of the car, which ripped the seatbelt out, ran over him, and this guy was mangled to death.
Jeez.
So a couple days later, I get the phone call. We had little phones at our toolboxes. I had to go to the big man's office upstairs, and I walk in, and he had this long desk, and there's a group of lawyers on one side, and there's our lawyers, and there's this guy in a wheelchair. And what happened was the service writer had just put R&R seatbelts on the ticket.
Right.
And they blamed me for not installing the seatbelt correctly. And that's why I didn't keep him in the car. Luckily, I have a mind like an elephant. I said, well, I only did the passenger side. That's what it says on my ticket. They said, do you have a copy of your ticket? I said, I keep a copy of all my tickets. So I went down, pulled it out, walked up. And of course, I saved the company $1 million.
Nice.
Wow. Did they give you a raise?
That's how you got that Porsche.
Wow. Yeah, exactly.
Well, the brakes.
Yeah, but again, it just comes, you were talking about being thrown out of a car or whatever. After that, it was always one of my pet peeves was I was always looking at the seatbelts themselves. And when I went to training or school up in outside of New York there, for Porsche, I asked the guy, and he said on average it's 10 years.
Yeah.
And by that time you want to check, and he showed me how the lacing was done. And when you get under an impact, it's kind of like a snap, it's double lace. So the belt will actually be stretched, and that's when they should be replaced.
I know now that there are sensors in the belt assemblies because you can read, and on a lot of the jobs they do, it's seatbelt replacement.
Yeah,
like majority of them.
Right.
Yeah,
Which no, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, Lewis, because that's something you could easily overlook. I mean, as we talk about, we write articles often, common maintenance items, tires and brakes and oils and filters and fluids. And seatbelts are something I think you just take for granted, so that's, so 10 years. Okay. So good to know, Brian.
And that's kind of, and like I said, we had them. And of course, when you're working on the car line, those upper end cars, you don't get that much of a complaint or whatever.
Sure.
But any company, that's a safety thing that they just don't want to get out. So if there's an issue, or if you say, hey, this is frayed, or, this is thing here, 99% of the time it can go under a warranty situation because they just don't want that bad,
Mhm.
Sure.
You know how the law. I mean, the luck of the Irish would be, as soon as you touched it, the next week something's going to happen. You know you're going
Right.
to get blamed for it.
Right,
It's,
of course.
You know, so
It's like seeing a leaky brake line or a leaky fuel line and sending it out. Like,
Yep.
that's you don't do that.
Yeah, I'll read about that on the paper.
Yeah.
Car catching on fire.
Right.
Man,
Yeah,
so
no.
good.
Well, guys, it's 10:30 for me, but you guys are welcome to stay on and play. But I have to take off. Carl, man, I really appreciate you coming on, and you can't be a stranger, man. We need your advice and info.
Keep our brains working. You know, this is like the most I've had to think in like weeks. It's crazy.
Yeah, but you know that's good because it keeps us fresh.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. Lewis, Brian, it's nice to meet. I've heard about you on the Motormouth show, of course. I've heard about you through Twitter by following Motormouth Radio, but I've never actually been able to put a face to the name, so it was great.
Oh, no.
Lewis, always great to catch up with you. And Ray, always a pleasure every time. Thanks for having me on. And email me back so we can, I know the holidays are coming up. I know you're busy, but let me know because I want to write that article on Haggerty's Bull List. And I really want your quotes for that. So.
Yeah, I read through I downloaded it. I printed out the paper and I read through it. And I'm like, I always think of like, okay, what can I say that's going to be a little different or unique? And I'm having trouble because I kind of agree with everything that's been said, and getting a fresh take on it is, that's why. And even though I do talk to younger people about their interactions, it's kind of all the same. It's falling right in line. I mean, they got their finger on the pulse. They really do.
Right.
And Haggerty has a great resource network for that. They really have a lot of ability to get the right information. I know I'm a Haggerty customer, so I get a lot of their stuff and surveys and whatever. So I always participate. So definitely, I'll be in touch about that. We'll
and just be honest with your thoughts, Ray. I mean, I want but anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Lewis.
Next week, Thursday is the day after Christmas. So I'm thinking we probably won't have a show, because people will be traveling or, trying to kick their relatives out of the house.
Driving in traffic.
Driving, yeah. So next week we won't have a show, or is it next week?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
26th.
Yeah.
Because I'm not done Christmas shopping yet.
Yeah, right. So next week we won't be here. And if everybody could share the link that I put in for YouTube, because I'm trying to build up the YouTube channel, and all that good stuff. Everybody have a good Christmas and please stay safe. And we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. So listen, guys, you guys can stay on. I'm jumping off, but you guys can stay on.
I'll be jumping off as well. I'm gonna say goodnight and get some rest. So always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Good talking to you. Enjoy. Thank you.
Take it easy, guys. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
All righty.
Well, Ray.
Standing.
Did you I meant to I sent a thing to Chassis John and Terry. I found a Facebook page on a drumming. I was a drummer, and I can't remember what drum. It was drum something. But it had different. Actually, the only reason why I sent it because it was kind of funny because you guys were talking about. There's Chassis John.
There he is.
Did you saw that thing I sent you on the drumming, right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love watching that, and man, it just for a guy that has 2 left feet and 2 right hands, I really wish I could play, man. They had. I don't know if you saw the one today with the girl on there beating the drums. The young girl.
I saw a girl on YouTube who's like, there were 2 girls who did a drum off. One of them was like she looked Indian, and the other one was Asian. The Asian girl was younger. I think, John, I sent you that link a while ago, and these girls could pound some skins, man. It was impressive. Very, very cool.
I'm always amazed when I see these like 5-year-olds.
Oh yeah. That too, of course.
Yeah. But I was going to try to send it to you too, Ray, because it's just I love watching it. Like I said, and of course, it's funny when you got somebody explaining the differences and then showing the differences, and then like somebody does. I don't have a musical ear or whatever. I can't even carry a whistle, But I'm very like I said, they didn't give me any talent, but. It's so funny when then you're like, yeah, I can hear that, or I can pick that out now, or whatever. I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. Didn't want to bore you.
No, that's not boring me. So I'm curious what the riveted brake shoes are for behind you.
The what?
Riveted brake shoes that are behind your head. Now turn the other way. There you go.
Oh, these went to a Suburban that I used to have.
All right.
It was
brake shoes.
Yeah.
86. It was a 85. It was the last one of a carbureted before they went that
before throttle body.
Yeah.
TDI engine.
Man, that thing, I tell you, I missed that truck. My father-in-law had it, and it was a Suburban, and it was one of those 15 carrying people with the 8-foot bed in the back, 4-door thing, And he used to tow his boat with it. So the whole back half was all rotted out.
Oh, yeah.
And that was my trash truck, But I couldn't get it through emissions anymore. They kept lowering the standards. And I just could not, and of course, after the 17th waiver, they were like, that's it, dude. This has got to be fixed,
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that was a great truck. I missed that. That was a great trash truck, and you can carry anything.
Oh,
you can put 27 people in it, and you can still put 10 things of 4x8 plywood sheets in the back, and nobody touched anybody. I mean, it was great.
And you would have liked this tonight at the Christmas party at the shop. We're talking, and this one guy, Nick, he starts talking about toolboxes, and he's got a new Snap-on box that the guy sold him. And he said, I'm thinking about getting a Matco toolbox. I'm like, yeah, they're pretty sweet, aren't they?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah. He goes, dude, I like it. I'm going to, I was like, but you're paying this one off for 100 years. So what are you going to do? It's like, I'll trade it. I'm like, that's going to be tough to do.
Yeah.
So I bust his chops. So, I just like to tease this kid because where the hell's he from? Some island. I don't know. He just annoys me. So I got to just bust his balls. That's just what we do. So with that's when I pulled my ratchet out of my pocket. I'm like, oh, yeah, look at this. Where'd this come from? He's like, well, what's that? I'm like, oh, dude, check this out. And he's like, hey, I said, that's custom built, brother. I said, you don't just get that off the shelf. And
no.
So I struck along, and he's like, oh, that's that guy right? I'm like, yeah, that's the guy I know.
That's the guy. That's the guy, yeah.
I'll be getting the toolbox from that guy. So I'm just going to drive down there. And I said, I'll pick it up. I said, when you get the inside track, I told him, I said, doors open. So I just got to stick it. I can't help it. I know it's not the right thing to do, but God help me.
It was kind of funny because, that's not a really common, I did that years ago. I mean, I did that back when we had the 36 teeth ones, the older ones, I would swap them out and it would work. I knew it would work. And, like I said, you got to watch who you sell it to because, some guys are going to expect that they can, take, use 100 foot-pounds on it. You know what I'm saying? But that's a different part.
He was asking me about that, and I said, well, I got those really short, shallow sockets. I said, if you're trapped between firewall and the back of an engine, I said, and you don't have a lot of room, I said, here you go. You put the shallow socket on, and now you have an 80-tooth ratchet that's slimmer to get into that spot and just.
Right.
I said, you're not going to be, it's not for high torque. I said, it's just that special app. This falls under special tools.
Right. And it was so funny. I have a lot of transmission guys that like that because they like the smallness of the 1/4 inch, but they like the size of the 3/8 when it's fitting on the socket, or getting one on the bolt, So, but it was funny. I was like, when when we were talking about that you wanted to get a couple and blah, do everything. I was like, oh, well, I have one kit here. I'll just go ahead and order up another kit. And of course I can go in and see the how much they have in stock. I get an idea if they have it or not, or if it's going to have to wait, a couple of days or whatever.
Yeah.
So I checked one day and it was like, oh, there's plenty ready to go. And then of course that video came out on Coons Trucking.
Oh yeah.
The video came out, and we have a page on Facebook with all the distributors throughout the nation, that we're on a private page, and everybody started talking about it. And I said, I better order this shit. Time I got to the computer, gone. And I was like, oh my God. And everybody was saying, was this going to work? And I mean, it was just a big frenzy about what's going on. And of course, us old guys are like, it'll work, calm down, save some for everybody, And now
the thing is, like you said, let's see. It'd be interesting to see what comes back because guys break them because they use them incorrectly.
Right.
That's
well, I'm waiting for the letter from Matco to say the engineer department has said that this is only blah blah blah. Matco is so cautious in what they're doing. I'm just waiting to see if this thing comes back and when somebody tries to send it in instead of repairing it, or when somebody tries to send it in. For warranty, and they're going to say, well, that never came that way,
right.
And that's going to be the issue.
Speaking of transmissions, I know on Clay Kuhn, one of the things that he loves to do on the truck transmissions, they're all using those pinless swivels now, like the swivel sockets. They're looking pretty cool, and now they come out with I think Magno came out with a long version. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty sweet. I'm making a wish list. I'm keeping it in my phone of stuff to buy for later.
Yeah, it's the Matco one. There's two different. We have two different versions of that, and the Matco USA ones are like a ball joint.
Yeah,
it's like a ball joint, and it's a true 360 degrees. There's no bind where the pin is.
Right.
And the ADVS or the non-USA version is a very similar to a CV joint, but it's a square. It's like a ball square. It's kind of weird. I thought I had one apart. I had one that I took apart.
Yeah.
To look at, but it's not. It's 60 times stronger than a regular pin one.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's neat to see.
So, I got a question for you guys. My 2018 2500 Chevy van. I'm having issues with the.
Was it the blend door?
No, traction control or something like that. What's the? Now I'm gonna be an idiot. What's the button that shows the car looking like it's doing a burnout?
Yeah, it's traction control. VTC, I think that is.
Yeah. It keeps coming on, and it limits the truck to like 40 miles an hour. So the kid has to, every time he starts the truck up, he's got to hit the traction control off button. And then it drives normal. And he keeps getting on the dashboard. There's a dual warning light. One will say traction control, and then the one below it says StabiliTrak.
Yeah, right. There's a whole paradigm of stuff that can trip those lights if the car if it either sees or perceives an issue, it'll set that stuff off. But there's also the possibility. There's also a possibility it could just be a fault. That's also, and that's why you need a scanner.
You need a scanner.
I'm taking it to Chevy Monday.
That'll do it. Yeah.
I mean, it's under warranty. The truck's only got 24,000 miles.
Yeah. If you spitball, that's when you need the parts cannon. You got to be able to but you got to look at the systems and you got to see what the parameter for the fault code is. And, but yeah, the scanner is the first line of defense. That's where you start with something like that.
Yeah. So he called me up. He's like, "Yo, I'm having a problem here." He goes, and I keep getting this, skid control thing coming on. He goes, but if I start the truck and then shut it off instantly, then the truck drives totally normal.
My wife's Cruise was throwing those off too, but what her problem was, it was a thermostat. It was a preheater on the thermostat. Some cars, Toyota is famous for this. They just light the dashboard up, And I asked Joe about this, like, what? He goes, yeah, they will light the dashboard up to get your attention and get you to service. And it's really just one thing. My daughter had that happen with her RAV4 a couple times. Like everything just lights up. I said that's not the end of the world. And I think Chevy had a little bit of that because they're throwing traction control and all that shit up there when the car had a thermostat code.
My Isuzu, my tool truck, the Isuzu, same thing.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, I actually have like four little engine ones,
Really?
like check engine lights, but they're like all four will light up. One's flashing, one's got an arrow. I got an arrow pointing at it, like, hey,
nice.
dumbass, you gotta do something,
Yeah.
Get out of here.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
I
The dash even changes colors.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh wow.
Because it's got like it's green. It's got a green backing and it goes yellow.
Right. Wow.
So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Get your attention.
Yeah.
So
My new
That's
truck,
the idea.
man, when you get in that thing and like as soon as you open up the door, like everything lights up
yeah.
and
Refrigerator.
the center stack, big giant, chrome GMC logo.
Yeah.
Starts moving around on the screen, and when you hit the start button, every single possible thing that there is to tell you about lights up. All of the gauges sweep from 0 to full, back to 0 to full, and then they drop to wherever they need to be. I mean, it's like it's like being in a space shuttle.
Yeah.
It's the most animated dashboard of any new vehicle I've ever owned.
When I was driving this Ram tonight, the new Ram, I'm in the truck and we left the shop and it's freaking cold. It's like, it was like 20 degrees. I'm like, okay, how do you turn a freaking heat on? Like everything, there's no heater controls anymore. And I was halfway back to the other shop and I realized, oh, that big digital screen in the middle, it's a touch screen. So hit, climate control, and now that all lights up. It's all touch. I'm like, give me a.
That's how mine is. It's got a big giant touch screen, and it's got all these little it's like looking at an iPhone. It's got all these little icons.
I felt like a freaking fossil. But I did notice, like, all of a sudden my hands were feeling warm, and I thought there was some maybe warm air coming out of the vents just by default. Just by like
steering wheel.
Either that he already had turned on. I'm like, oh, I like this.
Yeah. My wife's got a new Expedition. And same thing. You get in that thing, and it's like Star Wars thing. I mean, it's just like getting ready to take off. Everything lights up, and you get runway light. I mean, it's just crazy. I'm like, man.
I tell these younger guys, like, yeah, you know what? And I get in my '65 Pontiac, and the key is on the left. And I put a lap belt on, and I pumped the gas a couple times to set the carburetors, and hit it, and got to crank it a few times and fire it. And it's like. And you stab it into first, and you kind of let off the clutch, and like, there you go. There's your technology. And I love it.
It's funny because if you take like today's technology, and you just go back to like muscle cars, it kind of it falls along the same lines of like what you see Jay Leno doing when he's starting up like a 1901
steam car. Yeah, you're right.
You gotta like pull this lever, push this thing, yank this rod, and
manual choke. Yeah. Absolutely right.
Crazy, and now you just hit a button.
And I'll tell you, a couple of years ago, I have a friend that has a bone stock 31 Model A, beautiful car, and his wife has a truck, and I've ridden with him in the car, And one day we're going out to Captree, and he says he pulls up on a Sunday morning. He goes. We're walking back to the car. He goes, oh, wait a minute. He changed the position. He goes, you drive. I'm like, whoa, me drive. He goes, yeah. When was the last time you drove a Model A? I'm like, not a stock one, ever. He goes, well, today's the day. And then he had to give me the whole primer on Spark Advance and, manual Spark Advance and starting it and reminding me it's four-wheel mechanical brakes. And he had them adjusted really, really well. But he says, I'll walk you through it. Double clutching the whole bit. As we're coming down the road, he says, okay, you see the stop sign? It was like, like 50 yards down. He goes, well, start thinking about stopping now. Like really, he goes, because these are mechanical drum brakes. It's, you're not in a modern car. And it was very weird at first, but then I kind of got the hang of it. Top speed was 45 miles an hour. And that's, I adapted to it. And I came home and I had to run and switch cars and I had to go do the radio show. So I got my Fiat and I get on the highway and I was like, holy shit, I feel like I'm in a freaking F40 Ferrari and that Model A. But again, it's like going between worlds. Like, and a lot of people will never experience that. You know?
Yeah. I miss that.
Yeah.
That was one thing about driving some of the older cars, you know, in the shop. You get some of the older stuff and, you know, like you said, just pull this lever, or you had to play with, you know, the choke a little bit, and you know, it was always interesting.
Yeah,
they took a fun out of driving.
Pretty much. I mean, it made
way
it
back
easier.
when I used to have a choke cable on my Holly double pumper.
Sure. Oh yeah, manual choke, right?
And then,
all the time.
Then you went to the electric choke.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Now it's fuel injection. Who needs a choke?
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of fuel injection, tomorrow that 632 800 horse motor's coming.
Oh, for the Camaro.
Yeah, I got a phone call today from FedEx.
Sweet.
Yeah. They're like, I got a 640-pound package for you.
Somebody
like,
gonna be able to
cool.
receive it? Yeah, I'll be here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I can't wait to open that thing up.
Nice.
It comes complete with, I think the company is CVF or CFV. They make those serpentine belt systems.
Right. Okay.
He went for the black one, and then they run a ball mill along the edges.
Yeah, that's nice.
So you get that silver outline.
Nice.
Yeah, and the guys from the engine company said all that stuff it's on. It's aligned. It's on. It's done.
Oh, nice.
Including the Holly fuel injection. All I have to do is hook up the outbox, the controller, and a couple of wires, 3 wires.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
And then plug in the O2 sensor into the headers. And
right.
For the headers are being built.
Right.
You having all that? I mean, they're building that in there, right? Or did you put them in the O2 sensors?
The O2 sensor, yeah. We're getting headers from Lemons out in California. I've dealt with him many times when I had the chassis shop. And what he's doing is he's building the headers, and the collectors are going to have a V-band end to make it nice and easy. And then the reducer from 3.5 down to 3-inch is also V-band to to mate up to the collector, and that's where he's putting the O2 sensor. He said so that way you can throw the reducer on and you can rotate the reducer to wherever you need the sensor to be. Yeah. He said if you're going to run a dual sensor setup, not a problem. He goes, I'll send you plugs. He goes, if it's a single, just figure out what side you're putting it on, and if it's a double, you just rotate them to where they're out of the way of the chassis and any kind of road debris. He goes, and you're ready to go. I love those V-band clamps. That stuff works good.
Yeah,
that's nice.
I got a local guy who'll take care of the exhaust. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Are you just
not a lot of room under this car?
You're just running one O2 sensor, right?
I think that Holly Dominator only runs one. I'm not sure though until I actually get it. Yeah. I'm not positive on what they do with that. This is the first time I'm actually tinkering with one of those things.
Yeah.
It's already been put on the motor, and the tune is already in it, ready to go. So
you're gonna have that thing in before you come up here?
No, because the transmission isn't going to be here till mid-January.
Okay. Yeah.
And I haven't ordered a flex plate yet, and so we're going to do all that in the middle of January. I'm waiting for headers. Transmission will be here mid-January, so probably by the 3rd week of January we'll stick the whole package together.
Nice.
So I still got the car on the rotisserie. I'm still waiting for the center section to show up with the axles. I welded the tabs on the housing, so I'm ready to do the hard lines on the housing. And run probably maybe this weekend. I don't know. We'll see. I might run the hard lines down the chassis. And I'm ready to put the fuel tank in, so I can start running fuel system stuff.
Okay.
I got to find a spot to put the fuel filter.
Moving along, yeah.
So the fuel line stuff, is that running outside along the side on the because you have the 4-link and everything. Do you have room to run it or is it like down the center of the car, off to the side, or?
It's actually it comes out of the fuel tank. It'll run over to the inside of the rail. And then as it goes forward to like where the back seat is, just a little bit past that is where where your old leaf springs were.
Yeah.
Subframe connectors and this whole mid support all attaches. Believe it or not, there's enough of a gap to slide the main line and the return line under.
Yeah.
So now I can run those fuel lines outside the frame.
Right.
And then when it gets to the firewall, you always got that gap.
Yeah.
Flop it back to the inside, run it along the top of the rail.
Yeah.
And then it's going to have to go over to, like where the fender well is going to be, because that's where the regulator is going to get mounted.
You're going to make the line yourself? You're going to work with them?
We're using that steel braid hose, but it's got that black fabric covering on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's the new stuff.
That's easy to work with. Yeah.
Like ethanol type gasolines and shit.
Yeah, that'd be easy to work with. Yeah.
Oh, it's real super easy. Yeah, we bought a 50-foot roll.
Nice.
So it's good, and it doesn't. It's not like, I don't know. It's fuel injection's different. I mean, I spoke to the people at Holley. I spoke to a couple of people, and they were. It's a number 6 line.
Yeah, -6.
Yeah, it's a -6 in and a -6 return.
Just so you know, we got -5 minutes left. So.
The old days, I used to run like a number 10 line from the fuel cell all the way up.
Yeah.
For volume, but these high
Right.
pressure
Well,
pumps
pressure.
don't need to. Yeah,
No, it's pressure, not volume, right?
Yeah.
So it's a smaller line, just better fittings.
Yeah. Well, it's your usual AN stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm also using AN, on the brake lines.
Okay.
So that's nice because you don't have to do double flare.
Yeah.
There's a collar that you put on. And then you just do a single, but you don't do a 45-degree flare. You do a 37-degree.
30 is it 37 or 33?
Yeah, 37.
Yeah,
So
I think oil is 33.
Years
right?
and years ago, I went out and bought for my, for your double flare kit.
Right.
The part you turn down.
Yeah.
They sell them at a 45 and they sell them at a 37.
Right.
So when you're doing the brake lines, you put the collar on, then you do a 37, and the collar backs up the tubing,
right?
And then you got the loose nut.
Yeah.
So
nice.
That makes life easy.
Oh yeah.
I kind of hate double flare kits.
Yeah, I'm still looking to buy the pneumatic one.
The hydraulic one's badass.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at. Yeah.
There's really none that are small enough to work off while you're working on the car.
They make the handheld one, and they make one that's like a gun. Yeah. And the gun is big. That's the one, right?
This is badass, dude. If you do a lot of brake lines,
I do. Yeah, that's the one.
I don't.
This also does transmission, fuel, oil lines. It'll do it all.
It'll do bubble flare too, which is nice for European cars.
I was just looking because I thought there was 33.
It may be
33 and 37 or something, because I ran into that problem with oil line one time, or oil line fitting or something.
Yeah, 30.
Got
all AN stuff is 37.
Yeah. So
and trust me, if you're doing 3/16 brake line, you can flare it with a 45.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's not.
They seal right up.
Well, that's what I like about that. The stuff from Bendix, that copper stuff that you were talking about, Ray. Because like I said, even if you don't have it right on, all you gotta do is snug it up, loosen up, and snug it again, and that reshapes that flare. Yeah. That's the problem with I watch guys with the stainless steel. They end up cracking that stuff.
Yes.
Right.
They really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great when you get it all made up,
Yeah, and like I said, I wanted to make the loop coming off the master, and I just took a small can and just worked it around the can and had 2 straight ends. It looked like it was factory.
Yeah,
like beautiful.
That's why I like that spring kit.
Yeah. I got 2 sets of those. Yeah, I've had those forever. Yeah, I use my compound bender all the time. It's like
Yeah, I was playing with the brake lines on the Mustang. So
Oh, were you good?
yeah, just
Awesome.
I haven't gotten on it. I was just playing.
That's all right.
I've been going back and forth, and I like to talk to somebody about the size of the brake line. I don't know why, but
It's 3/16.
yeah, I know it's 3/16, but what's the pros and cons? Either going, bigger or I was looking for volume.
Changes pressure and volume.
Right.
Yeah,
We got a minute left. We just hit
Best
159.
thing you could do is call whoever makes your brakes.
Yeah.
yeah.
But if it's disc front and rear, it's 3/16 no matter what you
Right.
do. It's always
So-
it's pressure based.
It's always pressure. Yeah.
And then the amount of fluid to move the pistons, that's just simply based on the master cylinder and stroke.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
Stroke.
So
talk to
Stroke,
whoever
yeah.
you're buying brakes from and say, here's the caliper in the front, here's the caliper in the back, what master, what ratio, done.
Right.
It's pretty simple.
playing around with that, but like I said, just trying to keep my skills sharpened.
Yeah. I know. It's always good to go back and do that stuff. You're right. It
Well,
always
you
good.
guys have yourself a Merry Christmas because I think we're getting dumped.
We're gonna get dumped.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna get dumped.
guys, and we'll talk to you in
All right.
2 weeks.
You got